Hello.
Hey Noah, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Okay, so thank you for doing this. I really appreciate you taking the time. And let's get started.
All right, sounds good.
I gotta wonder, who did you idolize growing up?
Um, I really didn't, as far as sports person or something, I'm assuming you're thinking.
Anyone. I mean, a sports person would be fine, yeah.
Yeah, I really didn't grow up. Probably, probably my dad, I suppose.
Yeah.
Growing up on the farm, and we did a ton of stuff together, but we didn't have like TV like they do now. We hardly had any sports on TV and all that kind of stuff, so we really didn't watch too much of that. So I guess that's probably what I would say. My dad.
You went to Washington High School.
Yep.
Um, so what was that time like for you, and how did it help you develop into the football player that you became?
Well, I think really growing up on the farm and the work ethic that I saw, my mom and dad both were very hardworking people, and they instilled that in me and responsibility and those kind of things at an early age. Those are probably the I guess character traits or things that carried me on. Obviously, I had some talent and some size, and some of those things you can't just coach. But we didn't do a lot of weightlifting back then. That was still kind of a it was a newer thing, and weight rooms
Yeah.
weren't like they are now, and that kind of thing. So, but it was the kind of the physical labor in the summers that really helped build up my strength. And I know it used to irritate my weight coach a little bit in high school because I'd come in after not lifting weights all summer, and I could do more than the guys that had been lifting all summer in the weight room. So that used to bother him a little bit, but I always kind of thought it was a little bit funny.
Yeah. So you went to South Dakota State for college.
Yeah.
What was it like being able to play, D1 football, and how did that experience affect you?
Well, actually, they were Division 2 when I
Oh, they
went there.
were. Oh,
They've since moved up to Division 1. So it was kind of I had three offers: Morningside College, University of South Dakota, and South Dakota State. And then I could have walked on at Kansas State, but I really decided I needed to go somewhere that was going to pay for part of my school. So I had about a half to two-thirds ride to go to South Dakota State. Um, so it was a little bit of a smaller school, which was really a good fit for me. We had a good coaching staff that really cared about the players and met a lot of great people as far as other teammates and we're still friends, kind of friends for life, kind of there. So I had a great experience and really great experience with the professors and I studied ag business. Got my degree in ag business and animal science, and really had a great experience. The people of South Dakota, I just really was glad to meet a lot of those people and just really genuine people there in South Dakota.
yeah. So after your career, you were able to get drafted. What was the draft process like then, and compared to now?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because now I think they watch every pick and leading up to the draft, they televised the combine and all those kind of things. And
Yeah.
and back in my day, and now I'm aging myself, they used to not show any of the combine and very little things leading up to it. The mock draft has gotten a lot of attention lately and those kind of things.
Yeah.
But as of draft day, I remember being on the farm and we didn't have ESPN or anything like that. We didn't have the dish, so we were just watching. We didn't even watch TV because only the first round was televised. Then I think the second round went to the ticker along the bottom of the TV,
Oh, dang.
and then after that it was just that's all it was just picks happening. And then the second day of the draft, I got a call from the Dolphins in the sixth round, and they kind of asked if I was healthy and had gotten injured or anything like that, and I said no, and they said, well, we'll take you in the seventh round if you're still there. So I was like, okay, yeah, don't lose my number. I was like, yeah, don't forget about me. Call again. And then the Packers got to pick a few picks before them, and they picked me in the seventh round. So, but I was probably just as happy as the first guy picked. So I knew there was going to be a lot of hard work from there, but it was a blessing to get drafted, and I think to show that a team had enough interest to draft you was important for me, and getting on the right team for me. We had a really good offensive line coach in Green Bay, and he kind of helped me develop my technique and those kind of things that I was going to need to play, and had some other players that really helped me along the way too. Just some good guys. I ended up taking one of the guys' positions, so very unselfish of him to kind of help me and show me about pass protection and things like that. So I'm very grateful for those guys that really kind of helped me make it. So.
Yeah, and you've really been an underdog most of your career. Didn't get any major school offers, and drafted in the 7th round. I read something. NFL.com rates you one of the best 7th round draft picks of all time. What's it like being able to know that you kind of proved all those doubters wrong, and 2-time Super Bowl champion, Pro Bowler? Like, what's the feeling there?
I guess I kind of looked at it as a challenge. I knew, there wasn't a lot of expectations for me, although I got to hand it to Ron Wolf, our general manager in Green Bay. He said, hey, that our 7th rounder is going to make the team at the beginning, right after the draft, and I don't know if he was just trying to make himself look better or feel better about that, but it made me feel pretty good that he actually wanted me to make the team and those kind of things, because you never know when your last day is going to be there, but I just took it as a personal challenge that I was going to, work as hard as I could, and you never knew what day was going to be your last day there as far as getting cut or whatever, and I was going to do my best to try to make the team. And like I said, I had a coach who really taught me technique and some players that helped me along the way. But I did kind of take that as a personal challenge that, hey, I'm gonna do everything I can to make this team, and I think that paid off as far as becoming a leader later on in my career at St. Louis. That we had a lot of low round draft choices. We had, of our starting 5 at one point, other than Orlando Pace, who was the first overall pick, we had 2 undrafted guys, a 7th rounder, a 6th rounder, and like Tom Newton, I think, was drafted from out of Canada somewhere. So we had a lot of really, really low round draft choices at that time. So, and I remember our draft class in Green Bay, and the newspapers, they were like, oh, this is the worst draft the Packers have had in years. And it ended up being Antonio Freeman, Brian Williams, who played linebacker, Travis Turvey, who played running back, William Henderson, who was in the 3rd round, Darius Holland in the 3rd round, Craig Newsome in the 1st round. Out of probably 9 picks, I think there were like 6 of us ended up starting. So it ended up being one of the best drafts ever. So we kind of all had a little bit of a chip on our shoulder and had something to prove out there. But that's what kind of makes it fun. The draft is no exact science. I mean, you'll probably see some people getting drafted that will be bust, and you'll probably see some guys in the low rounds that end up really making a long and a really good career out of it.
Jackson, so you got to play with Brett Favre when he was a backup, Reggie White there, who I got to interview Julian Vandervelde. Reggie White was actually his hero, as for a lot of kids growing up. Steve Bono, really, quarterback, won a Super Bowl for you. And then eventually Kurt Warner later on in the career. What was it like being able to be around legends and being able to know those guys, off the field?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it was really like it wasn't happening. I mean, it was you're in the locker room with these guys, and when you stop and think about it, you kind of like somebody, I got to pinch myself, or somebody's got to pinch me, because I really just didn't believe it was going on. But really, they were really down to earth. I was lucky to be on the team with Reggie, and we had a great group of Christian men on that team, and I got to know the Lord, and so I've had that personal relationship with Jesus for a long time, and really thanks to Reggie and Kenny Rutgers and Eugene Robinson, there were a few guys that were on our team that really helped disciple me, and that changed the rest of my life right there as far as my faith. And so it was great to be around them. But yeah, the minister of defense, Reggie was one, and obviously Hall of Famer and all those things. And Reggie and his wife did a lot for our couples Bible studies and all those things. But then Keith Jackson. But yeah, Brett was a very down to earth guy, funny. Just a jokester, and he could get away with things that I couldn't get away with, being Adam Timmerman. But Brett could pour water over the dividers in the bathroom. If somebody was sitting down going to the bathroom, he'd dump ice water over on people, and he'd walk through on media day with the fart smell, waving that stuff around in the locker room, and the media people couldn't leave the locker room. Of course, the players left the locker room then because it smelled really bad, but he could get away with stuff like that where we couldn't. But he was very calm and cool in the huddle, but it was really neat to be in the huddle with some of those guys that, these were the best of the best, and I just thought it was cool to be out there and being in the huddle with those guys, or a team breakdown with everybody. Just it was neat, and I never really lost sight of the fact of how cool that was.
Yeah, and you had a lot of personal success for yourself. I gotta wonder, what was the Pro Bowl experience like for you?
It was a lot of fun, especially the 2 years that I went were the years right after our Super Bowls, which was kind of fun too. And so we never really had any time off. We went right back and flew out to Hawaii, my wife and I, and the first one, my son, and then the second one, my son and daughter. So it was kind of cool because they didn't practice. We didn't practice real hard the week of the Pro Bowl. It was about probably an hour and a half practice, and then we had the rest of the day off and a little bit of meetings, maybe 20 minutes of meetings. So it wasn't like an all day grind like it was in a normal regular season game. They stayed pretty basic, pretty vanilla offenses and pretty straightforward defenses. So we had a good time out there. Andy Reid and Tony Dungy were the coaches when I was out there. So and Andy was there in Green Bay when I was up there too. But to have Tony coaching us in one of the Pro Bowls, that was pretty neat too. So great experience, and to be on the field with all those guys. I mean, most of those guys are in the hall. So that was pretty cool too. If you just thought it was unbelievable before to be in the huddle with some of those guys, to be in the huddle with those guys at the Pro Bowl was pretty cool. And to be out in Hawaii, I mean, it was just a neat setting and the whole thing, a great experience.
And then another experience that a lot of even NFL players don't get to experience is the Super Bowl. What was Super Bowl week like for you?
There were a couple of Super Bowls that I went to that we had 2 weeks in between, like 2 weeks from the NFC Championship game before the Super Bowl. And those were really nice because you got to prepare the entire week in whatever city you were in at home, though. And then you could spend the entire week down in either San Diego or New Orleans or Atlanta, wherever we were, for those weeks. But if you could do all your preparation before you got to the away city, that was really nice to have that 2 week time period. And then we did have one Super Bowl, I think in can't remember what year it was. Maybe it was 99, where we only had 1 week and we had to prepare. We had a couple days in our home city, I think in St. Louis, and then we had to go down to the city right away and do the media thing and all that stuff. And that's just not enough time by the time you try to coordinate your family to get tickets and travel and do all those things that need to be done. You feel like a travel agent the first few days after you make the Super Bowl because you made no plans ahead of time because you didn't know you were going to go. So that was the trickiest part, was making all the travel plans and getting that ready, and then being able to focus on football after you got all the travel plans and all those things out of the way. Actually, I would have rather just focused on football and not done any of the other. I don't like being a ticket agent and a travel agent, either one. So. But the Super Bowl experiences were things that'll definitely stick with you, and you of course would never forget the guys that played on those teams, and just an awesome experience that the whole world is watching too. That's the one thing I kind of found out, because you have media day, but then you go back and you're watching ESPN. It's like there's no other football games that they're talking about. They're just talking. That's the game for the week. So everybody's focused on it. I would have to admit I've had a few jitters in those games that I didn't have before, because I'm normally not a nervous person. But I remember the very first one, and I don't think my feet hit the ground until after the first quarter sometimes. So it is kind of a big game, but it's still the same. It's just like all the other ones too when you break it down.
So you were able to win 2 of them. What's the feeling like, when the clock expires and you realize, you're Super Bowl champion?
Yeah, it almost doesn't feel real. It's just kind of like, okay, wow, and then after the fact, the Super Bowl party when you win is way better than the Super Bowl party when you lose. That's for sure. And the ring ceremony is way better, because the ring ceremony when you win is, they rent out the Ritz-Carlton or in Green Bay, it'd be the Country Club or whatever, the nicest place in town. It's all black tie and big meal and the big presentation banquet and everything. And when you lose, they have your ring in a little box, and they're like, read it off in a meeting room. They're like, Timmerman, and they throw it to you, So it's a lot different winning as opposed to getting second place. So but yeah, it's funny because, and I tell people this because it's weird, but being a competitor, I remember more about the losses than the wins, and that's unfortunate because I think about the things that we could have done better, and we could have won those ones instead of the ones we win kind of turn into, okay, yep, we won those, and you kind of clear your head of it and move on. But the ones where you lose, you kind of have a little regret about what you could have done different in preparation or what you could have done different during the game. So it's kind of a bittersweet thing to have them both ways, and I was very fortunate to be able to play in four and win two as well.
So now to your time with the Rams, what was it like being able to play St. Louis? You know, greatest show on turf, they say. What was it like to be a part of that?
Yeah, that that season was the most fun I ever had at any level of sports. When I signed with St. Louis, I thought they could be a good team and loved Coach Vermeil. Really hit it off with Coach Vermeil and the offensive line coaches on our visit. But I really thought they had some talent, but I would have never guessed it was going to go like that. We were so loaded with talent; it was unbelievable. And when Trent Green got hurt, it got everyone's attention because we had a really good preseason. We were undefeated in the preseason, and we really looked good. But nobody really knew what was going to happen once the regular season started and everything. Well, then Trent Green got hurt, and then Kurt got thrown in there. And with Coach Vermeil's leadership, I think everybody bought in real fast to Kurt being at the helm. But it was just the most fun I ever had. And being part of that offense, it was just confidence. We got the ball. It didn't matter if we were on the 5-yard line or the 45-yard line. We just knew we're going to go score. And we didn't really talk about it. We just did it. But I look at that receiving core of, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, Oz Hakeem, Ricky Prohl, Tony Horn, Marshall out of the backfield, and Ernie Conwell and Roland Williams, those guys could have been starters on any team, and we had probably 5 or 6 receivers that could have been the number one receiver on any team. It was just amazing, and Kurt did a great job of getting it to him, and the play calling of Coach Marsh, just everything seemed to come together that season, and I know it was kind of weird because late in the games of that season, they were actually pulling out some of the starters because we were so far ahead. I mean, we were beating people. The margin of victory was like 20 or 30 points like every week.
Wow.
And it was just amazing because in the pros you just don't see that. You see a lot of just really close games because the talent level is basically almost even in most cases, except for a few positions. But it was an amazing year, and then to cap it off with a Super Bowl win has been awesome. And we just had our 20-year reunion, so that's how old I am. We just had one this last season out in LA. So.
So what was it like? Kurt Warner, another real underdog. Turned out to have a great career like you. What was it like being able to see him go on to have the amount of success that he did and really become one of the best quarterbacks of all time?
Yeah, that was fun to see his career start. It's actually kind of a little tidbit there too. We were on the same in high school. We played on the All-Star game. We came out. We were both seniors in the All-Star game in Iowa together. So he was my quarterback on that team.
Wow.
So we kind of go way back. But yeah, to see another Iowa guy do well and have a great career, and he always had a great work ethic and a humble guy as well. So it was great to see him do well, and a former grocery bagger like I was in high school too. So we had a lot of things in common.
So yeah, thank you for doing this. It was really great talking to you, and I had a great time.
Oh, you bet. You did an awesome job. How old are you again?
13.
Wow, you're just really just well-spoken, just did a great job. You probably did better than most of the interviews I've done with people, so you did a great job.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's high praise.
Oh, you bet. No problem, man. I enjoyed it, so anytime you need anything, just give me a holler.
All right, thank you.
You bet. Take care.
You
See you,
too.
Noah.
Bye.
Yep, bye.